Hey guys, tonight we slip into the worn woolen robes of a medieval nun and tiptoe quietly into the shadows of a stone cloister. It's cold, damp, and the only light is the flicker of a tallow candle you're not supposed to have in your cell. The bell will ring any moment now, the matins bell, announcing the start of a very, very long day. You haven't had coffee because it hasn't been invented yet, and the mattress under your stiff back? A sack stuffed with hay that smells vaguely like sheep. Welcome to the Middle Ages. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake, post where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love knowing who's dozing off around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hear it, the bell. It doesn't chime, it clangs, swinging violently from the wooden belfry above your head. The sound thuds through your bones like a warning. It's somewhere around 3:30 a.m. Your eyes blink open in the pitch dark. No snooze button. No warm duvet. Jadi tanache. With a straw pallet, a scratchy linen shift, and air so cold it stings your nose. You rise, slowly, because if you do it too fast, you'll knock your head against the low beam that hangs right above your bunk. You already have a bruise from yesterday. You feel around for your shoes, leather, hard-soled and freezing, and slip your feet in as quietly as you can. Outside your cell, the hall is silent, except for the gentle pad of other feet. Dozens of women barely visible in the gloom shuffle like ghosts toward the chapel. No one speaks. Not because they're all sleepy, though they are, but because the rule of St. Benedict requires silence until after the first prayers. You join them, shoulders brushing in the narrow hall, robes whispering against stone. A sister ahead of you sneezes and instantly makes the sign of the cross. Another stifles a yawn so big it could have swallowed her scapular. By the time you reach the chapel, your breath is puffing white in the cold. The building itself is ancient arched ceilings that vanish into blackness above, wooden pews worn smooth by centuries of use, and a smell somewhere between beeswax and damp limestone. You find your place on the long bench and kneel. The floor is unforgiving stone. The chill seeps through your knees, then up into your bones. Knee of the younger novices tries to muffle a whimper. You send her a glance. She is not yet used to this. The abbess appears like a shadow from the sacristy. She nods once, and the first note is sung, a soft, low chant in Latin that rises into the air like incense. You join in. Your voice is barely audible. But that's okay. It's not about volume. It's about devotion or survival. Possibly both. Domine labia mea aperis, you sing, Lord, open my lips. And he does. For the next hour or more, you chant the Psalms. You know them by heart. Everyone does. Psalm 51, Psalm 23. The cadence is meditative. The repetition helps you float through the early morning haze. At some point, your mind wanders to the crack in the wall that looks suspiciously like a rabbit, then to the warmth of your candle, then back to the Latin. The rule of St. Benedict divides the day into specific hours, and matins is the first, the hardest, and the holiest. In theory, historians still argue whether the average medieval nun truly found spiritual joy in waking before dawn, or whether most simply accepted it with quiet, sleep-deprived resignation. Probably both. Maybe more resignation during winter. Here's a quirky little truth: some convents used candle clocks to time the prayers. As the wax burned down, each section marked an hour. If you fell asleep and missed the next chant, your melted candle tattled on you. Your own convent is a bit more modern. There's a water clock near the apothecary room. Not especially accurate, but good enough to keep the bells ringing roughly on time. The prayers end with a final bowed head. No applause. No well done. Just creaking knees, the smell of wax, and the faint rumble of your stomach reminding you that you haven't eaten since the last chunk of rye bread at dusk. You rise, moving stiffly. The older sisters murmur their final prayers. One or two linger, still kneeling long after the rest have gone. You wonder if they're extra holy or if their legs have just locked in place. The bell tolls again, just once this time. a low resonant sound that echoes into the dark. It's time for lauds. Yes, another round of prayers. This one is slightly shorter, and by now the sky outside has begun to lighten. Barely. A pale wash of gray like cold milk over the horizon. You step outside for a moment of transition, and a crisp breeze slices through your robe. In the distance, as smoke curls up from the kitchen chimney. Someone's awake and stirring the fire. You feel mildly jealous. Warmth is a rare luxury here. Suddenly a robin chirps. Just once. Then again. A reminder that even in this world of strict routine and ancient rituals, nature has its own rhythm. One that doesn't wait for bells. A sister near you lets out a quiet sigh. You recognize it. Not discontent, not despair, just the weight of another day beginning. Again. Back in the cloister, someone lights a few more candles. You can now see the faces around you more clearly, pale, tired, but calm. Some are young, barely 16. Others have been here decades. All move with the same gentle pace, like dancers in a slow, silent ballet choreographed by centuries of tradition. You reach your cell again. It's still just as cold, but the light is a little warmer. You glance once at the small wooden crucifix on the wall, whisper a quick prayer, and prepare for the next part of the morning. No, it doesn't involve coffee, but there will be washing. Sort of. You stare down at the basin. It's filled with water drawn from the well earlier this morning, meaning it's a solid few degrees above freezing, which somehow makes it worse than actual ice. It's not cold enough to numb. It's just cold enough to remind you that yes, your face is still attached, and yes, it will suffer. You dip your hands in first. Regret immediately follows. Then you splash your face, and the gasp that escapes your lips earns a sharp glance from Sister Benedicta, who takes silence as seriously as scripture. No soap. Not unless it's Sunday or a feast day. Today you settle for scrubbing with a bit of coarse linen and patting your cheeks dry with a cloth that smells faintly of lavender or maybe cabbage. The lines between fragrance and food storage are blurry in this place. Toothbrushes? Absolutely not. But there is a kind of herbal mouth rinse, brewed from mint, sage, and brace yourself vinegar. You swish politely. Try not to cry. Then spit discreetly into the trench behind the kitchens where wild mint grows in defiance of your suffering. You've made it to the post-prayer wash-up. Congratulations. Now comes the part of the morning where your silence is still required, but the atmosphere eases slightly. You walk quietly down the cloister hallway, which opens to a garden courtyard. The grass is damp and your shoes soak it up like sponges. There's a bird bath in the center, but no birds, just a squirrel staring judgmentally from the edge, like he's waiting for you to break a vow. The chapel bell has fallen silent for now, but time is still very much ticking. The next call isn't too far off. For now, you're free to breathe. Light is slowly seeping into the cloister like ink spilled across parchment. Long shadows, yellow tones. You begin to see color again, subtle grays and greens in the garden. Red bricks under moss. Someone coughs. Someone else sneezes and forgets to muffle it. A rogue giggle escapes a young novice and is immediately shushed with ferocity. This is the in-between, no longer darkness, not yet the grind of chores. By the time you return to the hallway, a faint aroma greets your nosebread. Fresh, dense, dark brown bread. The kind that can double as a blunt weapon if necessary. Your stomach rumbles audibly, a reminder that matins and lauds have cost you both time and body heat. You join the silent procession into the refectory, a long, dimly lit hall, lined with wooden benches and one large table. No individual seating. You all sit together, and you don't get to chat. The meal is simple, thick slices of rye bread, a ladle of bean stew if it's a good day, and water or watered-down ale served in heavy pottery cups. Wine only for feast days. Eggs maybe next week. Bacon? Huh. You must be joking. You eat slowly, not because you're being dramatic, but because you're expected to eat mindfully. Every chew is a meditation. Every swallow a quiet act of discipline. Plus, you're still half asleep, so chewing is all your brain can handle anyway. There's no music, no conversation, But there is a reader. One sister stands at a raised wooden lectern and reads aloud from a scripture, saint's biography, or moral treatise. Her voice is monotone but familiar. Today's selection, a particularly exciting bit from St. Jerome about the dangers of vanity. You mentally scan the room for anyone who might be wearing an extra polished crucifix. Historians still argue whether these morning readings actually helped instill moral virtue or just served as ecclesiastical white noise. Based on how much you're remembering right now, which is nothing, you lean toward white noise. Here's a quirky fact in some nunneries. The reading sister would double as the official hair cutter. That's right. While she preached about modesty, she also trimmed everyone's hair because vanity, after all, must not only be avoided, but actively snipped away. Your own haircut is a simple bowl shape, trimmed just past the ears and utterly unflattering, which is the point. No one is here to impress, except maybe the abbess, who gets a subtle gold thread woven into her veil on feast days. She claims it's tradition. Others suspect it's ambition. Meal done, you clean your bowl in the communal trough outside, using sand and water to scrub the insides. No soap again, just friction and hope. Then you stack it neatly and return it to the shelves, arranged by size and seniority. A bell rings again, and this time it's the one you've been dreading. It means obedience. Not in the spiritual sense, though, that's always implied, but in the logistical one, it's time to do your assigned task for the day. Shorties, jobs. Sometimes it's weeding, sometimes spinning. Occasionally, if God loves you, it's working in the scriptorium where the ink is warm and the chairs aren't broken. Today, your obedience task is sweeping the cloister walk. Could be worse. Armed with a straw broom that's older than sin, you begin. The bristles are uneven and occasionally fall off mid-sweep. You mutter an apology to the Virgin Mary when you accidentally dislodge a spider's web from the corner of a statue niche. You think about everything and nothing as you sweep. What you'll be assigned tomorrow. Whether Sister Hilda really saw a ghost last winter. Why the kitchen cat keeps staring at you like it knows something you don't. A breeze floats through the corridor and carries with it the faint scent of beeswax and stone dust. There's something calming about it, something eternal. For a moment, you feel part of a great, slow-moving river of time, one that bends gently around each century, carrying quiet lives like yours with its sweeping, praying, breathing in rhythms older than memory. And then your broom falls apart. Of course it does. You sigh, pick up the handle, and make your way toward the storage room. Sister Agnes catches your eye as you pass, and without speaking, hands you her own broom. You nod your thanks. She nod back, almost smiling. Acts of kindness are not forbidden here. They're just quiet. You return to your task. The cloister stones gleam faintly as the light grows stronger. Somewhere nearby, the cook drops a pot and swears under her breath in Latin. You pretend not to hear. The day is unfolding, and you're only just beginning. You pause for a breath, leaning on your borrowed broom when the next bell rings. Again. It's the same note as before, low, resonant, and just a bit too long. You already know what it means. The great irony of this sacred life is that even when you're being obedient, you're also late for obedience. You return the broom to Sister Agnes with a nod of thanks and make your way to the washing room. It's time for the midday cleansing ritual. No, not a full bath. Don't get too excited. Medieval nuns were not known for their daily hygiene routines. The lavatorium is a large stone basin built into the side wall of the cloister, usually fed by a spring or an unreliable gutter pipe. The water's brisk. That's a nice way of saying almost painfully cold. You plunge your hands in anyway, scrubbing the dust from your fingers. A novice next to you gasps quietly as the chill bites. You feel her pain. No soap here either. Soap is reserved for truly grimy jobs like tending the pigs, or ironically, helping with childbirth in the infirmary. Yes, nuns were midwives too when needed, though you mostly try not to think about that part when you're elbow deep in cold water, wondering if your nails will ever feel warm again. And just when your fingers are numb enough to start losing sensation, Sister Scholastica walks by holding a little earthen pot, the dreaded herbal rinse. You take your turn. She pours a stingy splash into your palm, and you toss it into your mouth like a shot of regret. It burns. It always burns. A blend of vinegar, thyme, and something you suspect might be basil or possibly punishment. You swirl it once, twice, and spit discreetly into the drain channel that runs under the wall. It smells like a salad left in the sun. Historians still argue whether this rinse was for hygiene, penance, or just the ecclesiastical version of hazing. You wipe your mouth with the corner of your sleeve. Sister Scholastica offers you a nod. Encouragement? Warning? It's hard to tell. Her expression hasn't changed since the Second Council of Lyon. Once your washing is done, you are blessedly allowed to speak. Just a little. You say Pax to the next sister you pass. The traditional greeting. Peace, she responds in kind. And now at last you are free to breathe fully and prepare for breakfast. Yes, this is breakfast. You file back into the refectory where steaming bowls of grain porridge await. It's lumpy, slightly sour, and sprinkled with crushed nuts if it's a generous day. You chew slowly, watching your breath rise in little clouds above your bowl. Across the table, Sister Magdalene is trying not to fall asleep into her oats. Her head nods rhythmically, like a candle flame swaying in prayer. And then she jerks upright. The reader has begun again. Another saint. Another homily. This time the story of a woman who walked barefoot across a desert to avoid pride. You glance at your shoes, scuffed, cracked, and already soaked from the garden. Pride isn't your main concern. It's trench foot. Quirky fact time, some medieval nuns intentionally wore hair shirts under their robes, coarse, itchy garments meant to provoke discomfort and discipline the body. Think of it as spiritual exfoliation. You haven't gone that far yet, but you do suspect Sister Scholastica owns one and smiles more on the days she wears it. The porridge vanishes quickly, washed down with weak ale or barley water. No one lingers. There's always something to be done. Always a bell about to ring. You rise, carry your bowl and spoon to the wash station again, and scrub with sand and grit, hands still stinging from the cold. You wonder if the saints ever had dish duty. Probably. And they probably didn't whine about it either. A small debate breaks out near the end of the table, a whisper between two young novices. It's about the upcoming feast of St. Cecilia and whether the abbess will allow the use of the organ this year. You listen, amused. Cecilia is the patroness of music, and the organ is both a delight and a curse. Delight because it breaks the monotony. Curse because Brother Anselm, who plays it, always hits one note slightly off. Every time. You suspect he does it on purpose. After breakfast, the nuns split off to their various duties. Some head to the garden, others to the scriptorium, and a few to the sick room, where Sister Clarissa tends to the elderly and the perpetually dramatic. You today are headed to the herbarium. It's not punishment, not exactly. You're trusted enough to handle mint, fennel, and even the occasional poppy when needed. You push open the wooden door to the little greenhouse. The air inside is instantly warmer, and for a moment you feel almost modern, surrounded by neatly labeled pots, drying racks, and the faint smell of rosemary. You crush a sprig between your fingers. Scent fills your nose, sharp and comforting. It reminds you of a memory you're not sure you ever had. A summer field? A forgotten recipe? A kind word from someone long gone? You begin sorting leaves into woven baskets, some for tea, others for poultices. A few, like the foxglove, are stored behind locked cabinets. One accidental pinch of that and someone's heart might stop, or start, depending on the dosage. That's the unspoken truth of the herbarium. It's a place of healing, yes, but also a place of power. Historians still argue whether convent herbalists were early scientists or simply caretakers following rote recipes. But when you're holding the root of a plant that can either soothe a fever or cause hallucinations, you feel oddly modern. You finish your task, wipe your hands, and glance at the sundial outside. Time is slipping. The next bell is near. Before you leave, you tuck a tiny dried flower into your sleeve, just a forget-me-not. Not forbidden. Not really. But not entirely allowed either. You walk back toward the cloister as the next bell echoes. It's nearly midday. Your knees ache. Your hands are raw. But your mind, calmer than it's been in days. And there's something about that quiet hum in your chest, something almost holy. The midday bell rings with less urgency than the dawn bells. It's softer, slower. It almost sounds apologetic, like it knows how much you've already been through today. And you have. It's only noon, but somehow it feels like you've already lived an entire life since that first cold clang before sunrise. You follow the others back toward the chapel. It's time for sext, the sixth canonical hour, and yes, you're praying again. These regular intervals of prayer mark the rhythm of monastic life, like clock hands without a clock. And if you think this seems excessive, well, so did plenty of people outside the convent. But inside, this is normal, predictable, safe, and strangely soothing, like wrapping the day in layers of ritual until nothing uncertain can sneak in. You settle into your usual place, right side of the choir stall, second from the front. The same stained glass window filters in warm gold light now, casting colors across the stone floor. The air smells faintly of beeswax, dust, and the lavender polishes Sister Marcella insists on using for the altar rail. It's not required, but she claims it lifts the soul. You're pretty sure she just likes the scent. The service begins. The chanting is low and hypnotic. There's a comfort to the repetition. The ancient Latin syllables roll over your tongue like prayer-shaped stones. You don't even think about the meaning most of the time. It's not about thought. It's about surrender. Letting your voice be part of a chorus that began centuries before you and will echo centuries after you're gone. Historians still argue whether this was truly a spiritual elevation or simply a method of mental control. Monastic discipline or monastic dependence? You're too sleepy to decide. Midway through the service, you notice something unusual. A sunbeam has caught the edge of your psalter and turned the gold leaf margins into fire. It glows. For a second, you forget to chant. You just stare. That's when Sister Hilda nudges you gently with her elbow, not hard enough to be noticed, but just enough to say, eyes on the Psalms, not on the special effects. You return to the chant. Eventually, the service ends with a familiar intonation. Amen. You respond in unison with the others, your voice barely above a whisper. The abbess stands, gives a final bow, and departs. One by one, you file out. No applause, no eye contact, just soft footfalls on stone and the quiet rustle of robes. And then, finally, lunch. You don't run, nuns don't run, but your walk is definitely brisker than usual as you follow the scent of food drifting from the kitchens. Inside the refectory, the table has been reset. More bread, of course, this time with lentil stew and a boiled egg luxurious. It's a feast day in honor of a minor saint you've never heard of, but you're not asking questions. You sit. You listen. You chew. The reading sister begins again. Today's tale involves a monk who stared at the sun for so long he claimed to see angels. You're not sure whether to feel inspired or concerned. Across the table, someone stifles a laugh. It's always the younger ones. And then comes something you didn't expect: dessert. Well, dessert is a generous term. A small square of honey cake, dense and sticky, served on a wooden plate that's been sanded smooth by generations of gratitude. You eat slowly, savoring each bite like it might vanish. A few sisters close their eyes as they chew. One hums a single note, caught in the flavor. It's a holy moment. Kind of. Quirky tidbit of the day in some convents. There were fierce debates over whether sugar was a spiritual indulgence or a medicinal necessity. Some abbesses banned it entirely, others stockpiled it for healing purposes, especially during Lent. You suspect yours belongs to the latter group, judging by the sneaky smiles from the kitchen. After lunch, the table is cleared in silence. Dishes are scrubbed again with sand, and hands dried on rough linen towels that have seen better decades. You stack your bowl. You nod to Sister Scholastica, who nods back with the solemnity of a court judge. It's a ritual in itself. Then comes your favorite part of the day, Lectio Divina, sacred reading. But not like earlier. This time you can choose your spot. Some sit in the garden, others by the window alcove. You curl up in the library, back against a pillar worn smooth by time. You hold a manuscript in your lap, a gospel, copied by a nun long dead, with elegant script and the occasional tiny mistake. You find them charming. a skipped letter, a flourish on a capital P. Proof that someone once sat here like you are now, trying not to fall asleep while holding the Word of God. You read slowly, not because you must, but because it's meant to be savored. Every word is like a drop of honey on your tongue. You pause often. Reflect. Let the silence fill your ears and your bones. This is where the outside world fades completely. No bells, no chores, just the voice of Scripture and your own breath. And yes, sometimes you doze off. Only a little. Only when the sun hits just right and the quiet wraps around you like wool. Eventually, someone taps you gently on the shoulder. Time's up. You close the book. Rise, stretch your arms, and follow the others out once more, refreshed in body and spirit. The bell will ring again soon. You can feel it before you hear it, like a ripple in the air. But for now, you walk the corridor in peace. The day is half gone, but something about it feels eternal. And tomorrow, it will be exactly the same. But today still has stories to tell. The corridor smells of hay and candle wax. Somewhere, a pot clinks softly against stone. Someone sneezes. Again. You're pretty sure it's always Sister Agnes. She has the constitution of a wet loaf of bread. And yet, somehow, she's survived 3 outbreaks of plague and 1 rather aggressive goat. You suspect she might secretly be immortal. Your next task is posted outside the chapter room, pinned with a wax seal and a wooden peg. You glance at it and your stomach sinks slightly. Kitchen rotation and dairy. Dairy. The only place in the convent where things are both slippery and sentient. You trudge down the cloister walk, back toward the low, domed outbuilding where the convent keeps its milk, butter, and cheese. The scent hits you before the door even opens. A potent mix of curdled cream, fresh hay, and hard work. You duck your head inside. Inside, the air is thick. The butter churns are lined up like wooden soldiers, each slightly tilted, each stained with years of use. You grab a long-handled dasher and start your rhythm. Thump, twist. Thump, twist, twist. The sound is oddly comforting. The butterfat begins to separate. Your arms ache in less than 5 minutes. The nun beside you is humming quietly. You recognize the tune. It's a Gregorian chant with an added lilting flourish at the end, which the abbess would definitely disapprove of. You don't say anything. The churn keeps thumping. You wipe your forehead and glance toward the shelves where rounds of cheese are aging under linen cloths. Some are coated in herbs. Others are sprouting soft white mold that looks suspiciously sentient. One round in particular seems to lean toward you as you pass. You ignore it. And here's a historical fact you probably didn't see coming. Many convents were renowned for their cheese. In fact, some became minor economic hubs thanks to their dairy production. Local villagers would trade goods or donate land in exchange for regular deliveries of butter, soft cheese, and sometimes mead. Which means, technically, you're contributing to the medieval economy just by standing here in your sweat-damp habit, elbow deep in curds. There's a fringe belief among a few scholars that certain convents even experimented with fermentation techniques beyond their time, adding unusual herbs, adjusting temperature and humidity using clever stonework, and creating flavors that no modern cheese has quite replicated. Of course, most of those discoveries were never written down, because nuns, despite what modern food bloggers would have you believe, weren't chasing fame. They were chasing faith. And maybe lunch. You finish your butter churning and begin to shape it into rolls with wet hands. Sister Benedicta eyes your work and says quietly, "Too soft." You try again. She nods, then promptly corrects your elbow posture. You glance at the tiny hourglass in the window, its sand nearly gone. Good. Soon the bell will call you elsewhere. As you leave the dairy, brushing crumbs of whey off your sleeves, you pass 2 novices in hushed conversation. One is wide-eyed, the other grinning. You catch a single phrase, the chastity belt. That rumor again. Let's clear it up, shall we? Despite popular legend, medieval nuns did not wear chastity belts. The metal contraptions you've seen in dubious Renaissance fair stalls or questionable documentaries are largely myth or misinterpreted torture devices. Historians still argue whether any real chastity belts were ever used for long-term wear. In convents, the belt of chastity was symbolic. Worn at profession, sometimes made of braided cord or linen, it was more about vows than locks. But novices love a good story. And the older nuns? They love letting them believe it, at least for a while. Sister Scholastica once told a wide-eyed postulant that her belt required a key kept by the Archangel Michael. The poor girl slept facing east for a week. Back in the main building, you take a moment to stand in the courtyard. The sun is stronger now. A warm breeze ruffles the hem of your robe. Bees hum lazily in the lavender hedge. The cloister garden is in full bloom herbs, vegetables, and the bright yellow heads of calendula nodding politely toward the well. Your next stop, the laundry. You sigh. It's not the worst job, but it is damp. The laundry basin is filled with water hauled from the river and mixed with wood ash to create a soapy, caustic liquid that stings if it gets in your eyes. You roll up your sleeves, dunk a linen shift, and begin scrubbing against a flat stone slab. Scrub, slape, rinsey. Repeat until you question all your life choices. Some of the stains are ancient, some are new. All are judged equally. You don't ask whose blood that is on the sleeve. Sometimes it's herbs. Sometimes it's nosebleeds. Sometimes it's someone who got too excited during a particularly emphatic kneeling prayer. Your fingers grow pruny. Your back starts to ache. You develop a deep spiritual connection with a bar of hard lye soap shaped like St. Bridget's foot. You name it Soapy Bridget. No one needs to know. Another historical tidbit, many medieval nuns spent more time on manual labor than prayer. The rule of Saint Benedict balanced ora et labora, prayer and work, as twin pillars of monastic life. Modern stereotypes make it seem like all they did was pray and gaze out of windows. But the truth was closer to scrubbing socks, hauling buckets, and quietly debating theological footnotes over suds. You rinse the final shift, wring it out, and hang it on the line beside the convent wall. The wind tugs at the cloth like it's trying to steal secrets. You watch the fluttering robes dance in the breeze and feel peace. Your hands sting. Your arms are sore. But your thoughts are still. And for a moment, as the bell tolls again in the distance, you forget you're tired. You just breathe and let the linen sway. The linen flaps like sails overhead, and for a moment, you let your thoughts drift with it. Somewhere far beyond the convent walls, merchants are shouting in the village square. Children are chasing chickens. A troubadour might be tuning his lute near an inn with a name like the Sleepy Boar. But none of that reaches you here. Not really. In the cloister, time narrows, focuses. You can feel it in your breath, in your bones, in your sore arms. You step back inside just in time for one of the better obediences of scriptorium duty. Now this is where you shine. The scriptorium is a long, sunlit room, one of the warmest in the convent, thanks to high windows that soak in the afternoon light. Tables line both walls, each equipped with a quill, a pot of ink, and a tilted writing surface. And it's quiet. So blissfully, wonderfully quiet, in that rich, almost holy way that only libraries and cathedrals can manage. You find your seat third from the end, near the window with the cracked pane that lets in just enough breeze to keep you awake. Before you lies a fresh sheet of parchment, cream-colored, slightly rough. It smells of sheep, because it is sheep. You dip your quill. Ink flows like thought. You begin to copy. Today's passage, a selection from the Book of Psalms. The Latin dances off your pen in elegant, angular strokes. Dominus illuminatio mea, the Lord is my light. You've written it dozens of times, but each time feels new. Here's your historical anchor. Nuns played a massive role in preserving classical and theological texts. While monks get most of the credit in popular media, female scribes in medieval nunneries copied volumes of scripture, commentaries, medical treatises, and even secular poetry. Some of the most intricately illuminated manuscripts we have today were likely the work of women hunched over desks just like yours, fingers stained and spines curved. You glance around. Sister Imelda is illuminating the margins of her manuscript, gold leaf glinting in the light, tiny vines curling between verses. She pauses to blow gently on a painted dragon. You think it looks a little like the abbess. Probably not an accident. Quirky fact, some nuns couldn't resist sneaking in little doodles. Cats chasing mice. Mischievous snails jousting with knights. Marginalia like these weren't just artistic flair. They were commentary, jokes, inside thoughts stitched into holy texts. A quiet rebellion in blue and gold. You catch yourself smiling. Your own margin is currently blank. But the temptation to sketch a tiny fox curled up in the corner is almost unbearable. Maybe later, when no one's looking. The ink pot glugs as you dip again. Your wrist aches, but your mind is sharp. The rhythm is addictive. Dip, write, pause. The world shrinks to a line of words. Your heartbeat slows. Even your thoughts go quiet. That is, until someone sneezes loudly. Startled, you drag a stroke too far. Your letter G now looks like it was smitten by divine wrath. You mutter under your breath and blot carefully with a bit of linen. The mistake stays, as all mistakes do. It becomes part of the text now, an invisible footnote from you to whoever reads it centuries from now. I sneezed here. Sorry. You finish the page. Lay it gently on the drying rack. And breathe. Now it's time to sharpen your quill. You pull out a small knife not for stabbing, but for trimming the tip into a clean point. Feather curls fall to the floor like parchment snowflakes. You test the tip against your thumbnail. Perfect. The bell hasn't rung yet. You still have time. You flip to the next sheet and pause. Sister Scholastica walks by, nodding once, then leaning in to murmur, straighten your back, or you'll be a hunchback by 30. You obey. She's not wrong. And then, without warning, a bee flies in. It lands squarely on the ink pot of Sister Petronella. She freezes. A whispered prayer escapes her lips. You all watch as the bee does a little circle dance, dips a leg in the ink, and then flies off again. Straight into Sister Imelda's hair. Chaos ensues. Quiet, repressed, deeply religious chaos. Eventually, the bee is shooed. No one is stung, but the tension takes a moment to settle. You go back to writing. The air shifts. The light from the window begins to fade just slightly. You feel the slow roll of time, the gentle insistence of another bell approaching. Your thoughts wander. You remember your first day in the scriptorium, how you stared at the blank parchment and felt like it stared back. How the abbess handed you your first quill with the solemnity of a sword being passed to a knight. How you misspelled amen on your very first line. Historians still argue whether nuns received the same rigorous education as monks. Truth is, it varied wildly by region, abbess, and resources. But in your convent, literacy is sacred. Reading isn't a luxury here. It's a duty, a devotion, a defiance of ignorance. You glance at the wall of scrolls, the shelves of codices, some copied by nuns long gone, some still being worked on, all filled with the collective breath of centuries. And it makes you wonder who will read your words one day. A bishop, a farmer's daughter, a curious scribe in a future you can't even imagine. Or maybe just another nun, sitting where you are now, tired and ink-stained, whispering Latin into the silence. You finish the final verse on your sheet. A soft amen. The bell rings. You look up, flex your cramped fingers, and let the breath leave your body in one long, grateful sigh. Time to rise. Outside the scriptorium, the air feels cooler, fresher, as if the world has taken a deep breath while you were bent over sacred letters. You stretch your back, feel the sun on your cheeks, and smile, because next you get to do something even more unpredictable than illumination. You're heading to the front gate, and visitors are waiting. The front gate is rarely dull. You walk there slowly, letting the soles of your shoes tap a soft rhythm against the cloister stones. Outside, the light is beginning to mellow. That golden, late afternoon glow, when the air smells faintly of old wood and sage, and even the birds seem to speak in hushed tones. The gate itself is tall, wooden, iron-bound, and, like many things in the convent, older than anyone alive here. Sister Ambrosia keeps the keys in a pouch that hangs from her waist like a badge of honor. She nods as you approach, and without a word, unlocks the great door with a creak so theatrical, it might as well be announcing drama incoming. And drama usually is exactly what steps through. Today it's a small procession, 3 women and 1 man, all dressed in fine but dusty clothes. Nobles. You can tell by the embroidery, the tired arrogance, and the fact that one of them is very obviously not used to walking on gravel. Her heels wobble like an anxious goose. They've come seeking sanctuary. That's the word they always use, but it rarely means just peace and prayer. Sometimes they're escaping marriage contracts, sometimes debts, occasionally a vengeful cousin with a sword and bad impulse control. You lead them to the guest house, simple, stone, with a fire already burning. Hospitality is required after all. Even if the woman with the fox fur collar won't stop wrinkling her nose at the furniture, you smile politely and nod. Your vows include obedience and chastity, not patience. That one you develop on your own. One of the visitors, a young noblewoman with ink-stained fingers and a distant gaze, watches you closely. "Do you like it here?" she asks, almost in a whisper. You don't answer right away. Not because you don't know, but because no one's ever asked. Eventually you say, "It's quiet." She nods slowly. "That's what I need." You offer her some bread and cheese, and her hands shake slightly as she takes it. Here's a lesser-known truth. Medieval convents weren't just religious institutions. They were sanctuaries, yes, but also political chess pieces. Powerful noble families often placed daughters here, not just for piety, but for positioning. Convents held land, influence, and sometimes secrets. Being an abbess wasn't just a spiritual role, it was a power seat. Like a mayor, a CEO, and a confessor rolled into one. Historians still argue whether women joined by choice or by force. But within these walls, many found something rare: autonomy. Within rules, yes, but rules they could shape. You escort the guests to their quarters and return to the cloister, just in time to overhear a hushed conversation behind the apothecary wall. It's Sister Letitia, and that's the abbess. And she's speaking with the man from the noble party. The words are indistinct, but the tone is not. Firm, quiet, strategic. You don't stop walking. That would be noticing. And noticing is dangerous. Instead, you adjust your veil and walk right past them, eyes forward. There are always politics in holy places. Later, during your next task, sorting through alms in the storage room, you find a small pouch of coins marked with a noble seal you recognize from that very visitor. It's generous, too generous. You hand it to Sister Scholastica without a word. She nods once and locks it away. No explanation needed. You've learned not to ask too many questions, especially when the answers echo with silk and steel. The sun dips lower. Shadows stretch across the stone floors. You sweep the entryway in silence, letting the rhythm of the broom clear your mind. You think about the noble woman with ink-stained fingers, about her question. Do you like it here? You remember what it was like before? The noise, the uncertainty, the feeling of being too much and never enough all at once. You remember kneeling here your first night, unsure whether to pray or scream. Now this life is a rhythm. It contains you, challenges you, sometimes even surprises you. You watch the light play through the latticed windows. Dust motes drift like spirits in the sunbeam, and you smile. Not because it's perfect, but because it is. As you finish sweeping, you return to the main cloister walk and hear the distant echo of a lute. Odd. You follow the sound and find Sister Clarissa on a bench near the herb garden, plucking soft notes. She's technically not supposed to have the lute outside of feast days, but she always claims it's in preparation. You sit beside her. She hands you a string of dried rosemary. Neither of you speaks. You just listen. And then she starts singing softly an old hymn, half in Latin, half in the language of your childhood. It curls around the air like mist. The abbess walks by. She stops, listens, then keeps walking. No reprimand, just silence. And in that silence, more permission than any words could hold. A quirky footnote for you: some convents had choirs that rivaled professional ensembles. Women who had no public voice in the society could become musical leaders inside the cloister. Some even composed. Their works, unsigned, drift through history as anonymous, but their harmonies are very much alive. The last note fades. You rise. The light is nearly gone. It's time again for prayer, for more chanting, for another carved piece of the day to slip into place. And as you walk toward the chapel once more, you glance back at Sister Clarissa, still sitting with her lute, her eyes closed. And you wonder, who else will sing tonight? The bell rings. This time it's the call for Vespers, the evening hour of prayer. You know it well, it's the sound that signals both a winding down and, strangely, a sort of spiritual crescendo. The sun is dipping low, casting long shadows across the cloister. The garden looks painted in warm gold. Even the stone walls seem softer, worn edges catching the fading light like wrinkles in a kindly face. You walk toward the chapel once more, feet brushing the cool stone, veil fluttering gently at your shoulders. The rhythm of the day has carried you this far, and you surrender to it without resistance now. It's like floating in a current. Inside the chapel, the candles have been lit, dozens of them, arranged in high wall sconces along the altar rail, even at the foot of the large crucifix that watches over every service with unblinking solemnity. Smell of beeswax is heavier now, mingled with the faint scent of dried myrrh. You take your place in the choir stall. The service begins, low and slow. The singing rises like smoke. Deus in adjutorium meum intendem. O God, come to my assistance. Your voice joins the others, a thread in a thick woven tapestry of sound. This moment, this music, it's not performance. It's offering, and it soothes parts of you that words never could. Historical fact, Vespers was often the most beautifully sung office of the day, a time when polyphony was sometimes allowed, especially on feast days. The acoustics in some stone chapels were so perfect that a single note could ring for seconds. And yes, a few nuns did try to stretch their amens just a bit longer, competing in holy harmony. The warmth of the chapel makes your eyelids heavy. You sway slightly with the chant, like a reed in the wind. Across from you, Sister Petronella is already in full eyes closed, pretending she's meditating mode. It's unclear whether she's spiritually transported or gently snoring. No one corrects her. The abbess closes the book with a quiet thud. The candles flicker. One sputters, then dies. The smell of smoke curls toward the rafters. The service ends with silence. You rise with the others, legs tingling from stillness. As you file out, you catch the eye of the young noblewoman you met earlier. She sits in the back row, lips parted, awe painted across her face. She whispers something you can't quite hear. A prayer, maybe, or a wish. You nod as you pass. In the refectory, the table has been reset again. Dinner is simpler now. Some bread, a bit of pickled vegetable, and if you're lucky, a wedge of cheese that doesn't smell like penance. It's a meal eaten in reflective silence. No reader this time, just the sound of clinking spoons and the occasional shuffle of feet. You find your place, break your bread in half and chew slowly. The silence feels different now, not enforced, earned. It's the hush after a deep exhale. Sister Scholastica sneezes. No one reacts. The food is modest, but your hunger has adjusted throughout the day. A piece of rye bread with salted butter tastes almost decadent, especially when paired with still cool water from the stone jug in the corner. Across from you, Sister Marcella accidentally drops her cup. It rolls. Everyone watches as it clangs along the floor, bumping into Sister Benedicta's foot. No one speaks, but the twitch in Sister Benedicta's eyebrow is a sermon all its own. After the meal, you clean your dish as usual. This time, the trough water is warm. Someone thoughtful has added heated stones. A luxury. Your fingers curl around the cup and don't want to let go. A quirky little note here: certain convents had designated days for feast laughter. Moments after communal meals when nuns were allowed to tell gentle jokes or riddles. Humor wasn't forbidden, just curated. The idea was to enjoy joy, but in moderation. Which explains why Sister Clarissa's knock-knock jokes always end in Latin. With dishes done and bell yet to ring, you walk to the cloister garden. The night air is crisp, not cold, just alert. The moon is rising. A few stars have started to prick the sky. You inhale deeply, letting rosemary and damp earth fill your lungs. A bat flutters overhead. You watch it for a moment, tracing its silent path through the dusk. There's peace here. Peace in the repetition, peace in the rules, even peace in the silence. You sit for a moment by the fountain. The water trickles gently. Someone's left a sprig of mint on the stone ledge. You run your finger over it and feel the rough texture of the leaf. A smell rises cool and familiar. Then you hear the distant rustle of robes. The noblewoman again. She steps quietly beside you, arms crossed. Do you ever wish for more? She whispers. You pause, then replies, sometimes. But sometimes I remember why I came here. And that is enough. She nods slowly. Thank you, she says. You both sit in silence. Two women from different worlds watching the moon rise. And for a moment, that's all the world needs to be. Eventually, the garden's stillness is broken by another bell. It rings slow and low, pulling your attention gently back to the rhythm of the day. You rise from the bench, brushing your hands down the sides of your robe, and nod once to the noblewoman before stepping away. She remains seated, gaze tilted upward, as if trying to memorize the shape of the moon. You pass back under the stone arch, through the cloister walk where shadows now stretch long and cool. Your next task awaits in the refectory, not a meal this time, but scripture reading during the evening, winding down. It's called Lectio, and unlike the formal chanting of the day's prayers, this is quieter, more personal. A few sisters gather in silence. Some hold worn manuscripts. Others clutch smooth wooden crosses or rosaries made from pressed herbs and twine. You select a familiar book, a collection of gospel passages copied by a nun long dead. Her handwriting slightly uneven, her margins peppered with tiny stars. You've always liked this one. You open to a page near the middle, where the story of the Good Samaritan waits. You read slowly, not aloud, just enough for the words to land on the soft places inside your mind. You pause over phrases like compassion and neighbor. You wonder, vaguely, if Sister Benedicta considers you a neighbor. She did once shove you out of the rain with her elbow, which might count. Lectio is not about study. It's about soaking, letting meaning settle into the corners of your soul like morning dew. Across the room, Sister Clarissa lets out the smallest of sighs. The abbess looks over but says nothing. Some sighs are permitted, especially if they sound holy. Then comes something rare, a moment of shared laughter. Sister Petronella, who has a bit of a mischievous streak, lifts her manuscript to show a doodle she's found in the margins. Two monks fencing with palm fronds. It's definitely not canon. Everyone leans in. Even the abbess cracks a faint smile. Just barely. But it's there. You whisper a thanks to the anonymous scribe who once lived and laughed between the lines. It's one of the many quirks of cloister life. Seriousness and joy are not enemies here. They just sit on opposite ends of the same bench, pretending not to notice each other while occasionally passing notes. The bell doesn't ring this time. Instead, Sister Scholastica stands slowly and says, "Let's go." That's all. And everyone understands. You rise, return the manuscript carefully to its shelf, and make your way down the corridor again. The air now holds the scent of smoke candles melting, torches burning lower. Outside the refectory, the hallway is lined with flickering lamps. Your shadow stretches and shrinks as you walk, flickering beside you like a quieter version of yourself. You're heading now to the cellarium, where preserved food, herbs, and supplies are stored. It's one of your favorite spaces. Something about the cool, earthy smell and the heavy wooden shelves makes you feel grounded. Your task, inventory. You grab the chalkboard and begin counting jars of pickled beets, dried peas, salted fish, and yes, the hard-earned rounds of cheese you helped to churn earlier. Some are developing fine mold crusts, like monks in retirement. You count anyway. Quirky tidbit in some nunneries, the cellarist head of the cellar held almost as much power as the abbess. She controlled food, trade, and often secrets. After all, she knew who was sneaking extra rations and who was giving too much away to the poor. Power, like cheese, often aged quietly. You mark a tally beside the honey jars and move to the back of the room. A single candle lights your path, and then you find it. A small folded piece of parchment tucked behind the barrel of barley. You look around. No one's here. You mutter for us. You open it. It reads, "Remember, sister, even bees must rest sometimes." There's no name, just a little ink sketch of a bee sleeping on a pillow. You grin. Someone here has a sense of humor. Maybe even a secret. You fold the note, tuck it into your sleeve, and finish your count. Outside, the sky is indigo now. Stars pierce the dark in clusters. You pause at the cloister fountain, cup your hands under the spout, and splash cool water on your cheeks. It feels like a closing parenthesis to the day. Then footsteps. Sister Magdalene approaches, holding 2 steaming mugs of barley tea. She offers one without a word. You take it. The warmth seeps through your fingers. The steam curls around your face like incense. You sit together in silence. Sip. Watch the sky. Listen to the low murmurs of distant voices, the occasional creak of old wood settling into the night. And then, for no reason at all, Sister Magdalene says, "When I was 10, I wanted to be a knight." You blink. She shrugs. "I thought armor would make everything feel safer." You nod, holding your cup closer. "Turns out," she adds, "wool works too." And that's it. No follow-up. Just the softest confession whispered into twilight. You finish your tea. Rise. The final bell will ring soon. It's almost time to close the cloister and seal the day. The cloister doors are thick in old dark oak bound with iron, engraved faintly with patterns smoothed by time. You've passed them 1,000 times, but tonight, something about them feels final. Heavy in a good way, like the end of a chapter. Sister Ambrosia approaches with the great keyring, the kind that jingles like it's announcing royalty. She selects the largest one, turns it in the lock with a sound that rumbles into your chest and shuts the doors with practiced grace. Soft click follows. The outside world is now firmly on the other side. No visitors, no noble dramas, no carts, no dust, no messengers from the bishop trying to donate his least favorite cousin. The night belongs to you and to silence, or mostly silence. You follow the others to the chapter room, the communal space where the nuns gather each evening for confession, announcements, and the occasional group sigh of exhaustion. You sit on the wooden bench in your usual spot far left, beside the wall with the small crack shaped like a fish. You like it there. It helps you remember that imperfection exists even in stone. The abbess enters and stands beneath the crucifix. Who wishes to speak? It's not mandatory, but tonight 3 sisters rise. The first confesses to dozing off during Vespers. She says it like she stole from the Pope. The second admits to breaking silence when she stubbed her toe and swore not in Latin, which would have been holier, but in the village dialect. The third, she says she coveted Sister Clarissa's needlework during embroidery hour. Sister Clarissa smiles smugly. The abbess gives quiet penances, extra prayers, garden duty, a week of dishwashing. There is no judgment here, only discipline with a soft edge. Then comes your turn. You rise. You admit quietly that you nearly added a doodle to today's manuscript. A fox, just a tiny one. It didn't make it to the parchment, but the temptation did. The abbess raises one brow, but there's the ghost of amusement in her expression. Add it to your prayers, she says, and keep your foxes for the margins of your dreams. You sit again, heart lighter. The room begins to thin. Some sisters rise for bed. Others linger, folding away prayer books or smoothing the folds in their habits like that might somehow smooth the day too. You pass Sister Scholastic on your way out. She touches your arm lightly. You'd better not add that fox, she says. Then she winks. Outside the chapter room, you pause at the candle station, where thin wax tapers are kept in a carved wooden box. You take one and light it from the central flame, careful not to let the wax drip on your hand. The candle is your companion now, your only light for the rest of the evening. You walk slowly to your cell. Along the corridor, shadows dance on the walls. The flickering light makes the icons blink and move. You glance once at Saint Teresa, whose eyes always seem to follow you. Tonight, she looks especially judging. You blow her a kiss just in case. In your cell, the candle casts a warm halo against the stone. Your straw mattress waits in the corner, neatly made. A wooden stool holds your prayer book, a half-woven belt, and a scrap of cloth embroidered with a single word Pax. Peace. You kneel beside the bed and whisper your prayers. Some are familiar rote phrases learned long ago. Others quieter, secret things only God hears. You add one last line, barely audible. Please let the cheese tomorrow not be cursed. Historical pause. Many nuns used the evening hours for personal prayer and reflection. Some also used it for sneaky creativity, writing verses, copying texts, even composing music. Technically, after complain was meant to be silence, but creativity often whispers when the world quiets. You lie down. The straw mattress rustles like dry leaves. You blow out the candle. Darkness, but not empty darkness. The kind filled with memory, with rhythm, with the fading echo of chant still humming somewhere behind your eyes. Then there's a knock, barely audible. You rise and open your door just enough to see Sister Petronella standing there, candle in hand, eyes wide. Someone's put honey on the bread stash, she whispers. This is chaos. Together you tiptoe to the kitchen. Sure enough, on the small loaf meant for tomorrow's meal, someone has scrawled a smiley face in honey. You stare at it. Sister Petronella stares at it. Neither of you speaks. Then without a word, you both take a crumb from the corner. Just a taste. Not gluttony. Just investigation. You return to your cell, still smiling. Quirky convent truth nuns weren't humorless. Some convents even had official gestures, appointed sisters who were allowed to tell jokes during specific seasons. Holy humor was seen as medicine for the soul. A laugh in the right context, a prayer with teeth. Back in bed, you pull the blanket up to your chin. The stone walls breathe cold, but your body is warm. Your thoughts are slow now, soft. The abbess's voice, the fox you never drew, the noble woman and her ink-stained fingers, the bee on the ink pot, the candlelight and the honey smile. All of it blurs like ink in water. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember dreaming. A chant, a garden, a tiny fox curling into the corner of a manuscript, blinking once before closing its eyes. You wake to a sound you weren't expecting, the soft scrape of a stool, followed by a muffled thump. Still wrapped in your blanket, you open one eye and see Sister Clarissa crouched at the foot of your bed, holding a basket of candles and whispering aggressively at a stub of wax that refuses to stay upright. Oh, good, she hisses when she notices you're awake. You can help. You groan but shift upright. It's not even dawn, yet someone forgot to prep the chapel candles for today's feast. You suspect it was Sister Petronella, who is currently too conveniently absent to defend herself. So you help, because that's what you do. The feast day has arrived. You can tell by the sudden flutter of energy in the convent. There's more movement, more muttering, more pots clanging in the kitchen. It's like watching a beehive wake up in slow motion, except all the bees are wearing wimples and carrying buckets of barley. After the emergency candle deployment, you're pulled into assisting with vestment cleaning, the ceremonial robes worn by the abbess, and the altar attendants during special services. You're handed a brush, a bowl of lavender-scented water, and very clear instructions: do not scrub the embroidery. Dab it like a saint would touch a relic. You try your best. The embroidery is intricate, tiny golden threads, blue and red patterns of vines, birds, and crosses. You imagine the sisters who stitched it centuries ago, squinting by candlelight. How many prayers are sewn into these hems? You pause at one section where a single thread has been repaired poorly. You recognize the hasty stitches, your own from last winter. Sister Scholastica had nodded approvingly, but still said, well, at least it's attached. Historical detail for your day embroidery was a core part of convent artistry. Some nuns became so skilled that nobles commissioned them for altar cloths and ecclesiastical garb. It wasn't just decoration, it was theology in thread, a visible devotion. You finish your section and help carry the vestments to the sacristy. The chapel is already filling with the scent of incense. Someone scattered dried rosemary along the aisle. It crunches faintly under your shoes. Then comes the bell. The feast begins. The chapel is more alive than usual. The candles flicker in rows. The windows glow, stained glass casting blue and gold over your faces. The chant begins, but this time it has layers. There's a harmony, two voices intertwining like ivy. You glance across the stall and realize it's Sister Clarissa and Sister Marcella. They're doing it again, singing slightly above the line. It's technically allowed on feast days, but only technically. You smirk. The abbess pretends not to notice, which is her way of saying, fine, but don't enjoy it too much. The service swells. You sing, you kneel, you sway. You nearly tip over once but recover gracefully. Someone lets out a small amen that sounds suspiciously like a yawn. At the climax of the service, the abbess delivers the homily today. It's about Saint Bridget and the miracle of her cloak stretching across a field to claim land for the church. You think about that cloak. Imagine stitching one big enough to lay over your entire life. The sermon ends with a reminder: feast days are for reflection, gratitude, and yes, a little bit of joy. Which is how you find yourself 30 minutes later in the kitchen, helping stir a pot of honeyed oatcakes. Sister Petronella has reappeared, of course, with a suspicious amount of flour on her veil. You don't ask. You're put in charge of table setting, not the usual wooden bowls and spoons, but the good set. The ones polished once a season, with edges that still catch candlelight. You work with quiet hands. The meal is longer than usual. The readings are replaced with music soft, harp-like notes from the small dulcimer Sister Imelda keeps under lock and key. There's laughter, carefully rationed but real. A quirky truth: some nunneries brewed their own beer, and on feast days they poured it generously. It wasn't just celebration, it was nourishment. Liquid bread. Yours is mixed with herbs today, chamomile, lemon balm, and a hint of something Sister Scholastica won't name. After the feast, there's a walk in the orchard. It's unofficial. It always is. But you know the path. You join the others in slipping out through the side gate, following the trail past the herb garden, past the beehives humming like sleepy lungs, and into the grove of crab apple trees. It's quiet here. Just birds' wind and the soft crunch of dry leaves. Someone starts singing softly, wordlessly. You don't know the tune. Maybe no one does. It just floats like mist over grass. You pluck a crab apple from a branch and roll it in your palm. Sister Magdalene approaches, whispering, I saw your fox. You freeze. What fox? In your sleeve, she says, grinning. On the parchment. You stare. She winks. Don't worry. I like foxes. And then she walks away humming. You turn the crab apple over once. Take a bite. It's tart, sharp, real. Back in the cloister, the abbess finds you and hands you a folded square of cloth. For your window, she says simply. You open it later in your cell. It's embroidered. Just one small fox curled up under a tree, and above it, the word sparrow, hope. You smile, then fold it neatly and tuck it into your pillow. Because hope, like honey, is best kept close when the nights turn long. The warmth from the feast still hums in your chest as you step into the chapel one last time today. The final hour of prayer compline is about to begin. It's the gentlest service of them all. The lights are low, the chant slower, and everything feels like it's exhaling. You take your place in the choir stall, fingertips brushing the smooth edge of the wooden rail. The candle beside you flickers quietly, as if even the flame is getting ready to sleep. You bow your head as the abbess begins. Her voice is softer now, not because of fatigue, but because the hour itself demands gentleness. You join in the chant with barely a whisper. In manus tuas, Domini, commendo spiritum meum. Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. The words wrap around the room like a lullaby. The ceiling soars above you, lost in shadow. Every breath, every syllable, every soft shuffle of robes seems to echo just a little longer than it should, as if the very air has slowed down. Historical note to carry with you: Compline was often said entirely by memory, especially in winter months when candles were precious. And in some traditions, after Compline, a vow of silence began that lasted until the morning bell. Not even a whisper until dawn. Tonight, the vow is in effect, and you feel it in your bones, the hush that's heavier than silence. It's sacred. No more stories. No more glances. Just stillness. Just breath. The candles are snuffed out, one by one. A soft puff. Then another. Each tiny death of light makes the room darker, and yet somehow warmer. You close your eyes and listen to the final amen. You leave in silence. The hallway is lit by moonlight now, silver slivers cutting across stone. You hold your hands together, not in prayer this time, but in quiet gratitude that the day is ending and your bed is not far. You pass the cloister walk. The night wind has died down. The herbs in the garden barely stir. Even the ever-grumpy cloister cat, Brother Whiskers, is curled up on a windowsill, tail twitching in sleep. Your cell is as you left it, simple, clean, cold. You slip under your blanket, the straw mattress whispering beneath you. You tuck the embroidered cloth from the abyss back under your head and press your palm to the wall beside your bed. It's cool stone, firm, comforting. But just as your breath begins to deepen, you hear it. A knock. Again. You blink. Sit up. This time it's not Sister Clarissa or some honey-themed prank. It's the young noblewoman. Barefoot, her robe draped unevenly, eyes wide, hair loosed from its veil. She looks like she's carrying a secret too big for her small frame. You open the door. She slips in without a word, hands you a folded scrap of parchment, and presses a finger to her lips. Then she's gone. You open the note. It reads, "I want to stay." You stare at it for a long time, then smile, because there are no vows yet, no decisions made, but the seed has been planted. You saw it earlier today in the way she looked at the stained glass, the way her lips moved in time with the chants, the way her fingers traced the edge of a candle holder like it held a map to somewhere better. And now you know for certain, she's not running from something anymore. She's running toward. You tuck the note into the back of your prayer book. Not in the middle, too easy to find. Not at the end, that's where you keep your doodles. Near the front. Beside the passage about Mary's yes. You lie back down. Try to sleep. But the thoughts keep curling around your heart. You think of the abbess as a girl, making her first vows. You think of Sister Petronella learning to chant. Of Sister Clarissa composing lullabies when no one's listening. Of all the women who came before you, some escaping, some searching, some simply stepping into the rhythm and finding it match the beat of their own soul. Historians still argue what drew women to the cloister in those days. Was it duty, piety, lack of choice? Perhaps. But sometimes it was something else. The desire to be part of something timeless. To find stillness. To belong to a place where your voice mattered, even if spoken only to God. To choose quiet not as surrender, but as power. The wind shifts outside your cell. You hear it whistle once past the window. The candle has long gone out, but you feel its ghost, a warmth at your shoulder, a flicker in your thoughts. You close your eyes. And in your mind, a fox curls up in the corner of a manuscript, one paw tucked under its chin. You smile. The cloister sleeps. And so do you. The night passes slowly but peacefully. When you wake, it's not to the bell, not this time, but to the distant cooing of doves in the courtyard. That soft, repetitive hum that seems older than sound itself. For a few seconds, you simply lie there, still, wrapped in your blanket, listening. You stretch your arms slowly, feeling the aches of yesterday still lingering in your shoulders, in your wrists. But it's a good ache, the kind that reminds you of effort, not failure. You rise, splash water on your face from the little earthen bowl beside your bed, and blink yourself fully into wakefulness. You're halfway through the week now, and the rhythm of convent life has seeped so deeply into your bones that time feels less like a straight line and more like a gentle circle. It's not about rushing to a destination. It's about stepping into each hour, letting it fold around you. Today's obedience? Laundry again. You give a half smile. Back to the wash basins. Back to the lye and the linen and the water cold enough to convince you that your fingers might actually just stop working out of spite. Still, there's something meditative about laundry. The same actions repeated. Scrub, rinse, you wring, young. You fall into rhythm easily. Across from you, Sister Agnes hums under her breath, something that might have once been a lullaby before centuries of repetition wore it smooth. You scrub a veil that looks like it's been through battle, probably Sister Magdalene's. She always ends up in the thorn bushes when she's gathering herbs. You pause to look up at the sky. It's overcast today, pale gray clouds rippling like unspun wool. No rain, not yet, but the air smells like it might. Historical aside, convents didn't have soap as we know it. They used ash and water to make lye a caustic substance that worked surprisingly well, but also left hands dry, raw and probably glowing faintly in the dark. Some nunneries eventually added herbs to soften the mixture. You're still in the grit and prayer phase of laundry chemistry. You hang the veil on the line, then the next one, and the next. The wind begins to pick up, and soon the entire row of linen begins to sway gently, as if the laundry itself is breathing. It's a quiet kind of holy. Later, after the bells ring for terce, you're assigned to the infirmary. This is delicate work not just because of illness, but because of the emotional landscape. The elderly sisters are kept here, along with anyone ill or injured. It smells like lavender, vinegar, and thyme. You help change linens, spoon broth, and rub balm into Sister Hilda's knees. She thanks you 3 times, then calls you Margaret, which isn't your name, but you accept it. She once mistook the abbess for St. Peter, so you're flattered, honestly. In the corner, Sister Dominica is muttering the rosary in Latin, but every 5th bead, she inserts a complaint about the soup. You nod solemnly. Her holiness is spiced with sass. There's something sacred about tending to the sick. The slow care, the quiet prayers muttered between tasks. You catch Sister Clarissa gently singing a hymn while applying comfrey salve to a bruised ankle. The melody settles over the room like mist. Here's something odd and wonderful. Some convents ran proto-hospitals long before most towns did. With herbal knowledge passed down in whispered recipes, nuns became unofficial physicians treating wounds, fevers, even childbirth. Many of their cures worked. Some of them, surprisingly, still do. You fetch more balm from the herbarium and find another note. This time it's wedged behind the jar of dried elderflower. You're stronger than you think. So was she. There's a tiny fox drawn in the corner. Whoever's doing this has excellent penmanship, and possibly a key to the herbarium. You tuck the note into your sleeve, heart warmed. These quiet encouragements, left like breadcrumbs across your days, feel like a silent friendship. A thread tying you to someone unseen but near. After the infirmary shift, you head back toward the cloister walk. The abbess is standing under the archway, speaking quietly to Sister Scholastica. When she sees you, she lifts one hand, not summoning, just acknowledging. You nod. A gesture of trust passes between you, wordless but heavy with meaning. The next bell rings. Sext again. The hours wheel back to prayer, and you let the chants carry you. The afternoon passes in snippets. You sew a new hem onto your habit. You help gather late summer herbs. You spend 15 minutes trying to get a bee out of the scriptorium again. It seems the bees have taken a personal interest in your life this week. And then it's time for the evening meal. The bread tonight is nutty and dense. There's a turnip stew that tastes better than expected until you bite into what might have been a small pebble or a very angry bean. You don't ask. A piece of fruit arrives at your place, an apple. Crisp. Red. You glance around, confused. Then you see Sister Magdalene looking very intently, not at you. You smile. After dinner, the silence begins again. You head to the garden. The sky is shifting to dusk. The clouds have thinned, revealing slashes of soft pink and lavender behind the trees. The bees are finally gone. The fountain bubbles faintly. You sit beside it, pluck a mint leaf, and breathe in its scent. You feel steady, rooted, like the stone beneath you, old and patient. And for the first time today, you realize you didn't count the hours. You just lived them. The wind changes just after sunset. It sweeps through the cloister like a soft hand brushing away the last crumbs of the day. The trees rustle in reply, and the air carries a scent you can't quite name somewhere between old parchment and rosemary smoke. You wrap your arms around yourself, not from the cold, but from the sensation that the day is complete. It's time for Compline again, but tonight it feels different. You've settled into the rhythm so fully now that each movement, the walk to the chapel, the bow of your head, the feel of the waxy candle taper in your palm, feels like returning, not performing. You've been here long enough to realize something most outside don't see. Repetition doesn't deaden life. It deepens it. Inside the chapel, the final prayers begin. The chants are familiar, low and slow, voices stacked like folds in linen. No one rushes. No one leads too loudly. It's the sound of shared breath, shared purpose. You let your voice hum along with the others. Soft, steady. Salva nos Domine, vigilantes, custodia nos dormientes. Save us, Lord, while we are awake. Protect us while we sleep. After the last amen, the candles are extinguished one by one. Darkness rolls in like velvet. The abbess raises her hand in blessing, then turns to go. The rest of you follow, feet whispering against the floor. But instead of heading straight to your cell, you take the long way around. You circle the cloister one more time. The corridor is lit only by the moon, filtering through narrow arches and long silver beams. Everything glows blue. You pass the herb garden. The mint is curling inward. The lavender bows gently. At the far corner, you find a surprise. The young noblewoman is sitting on the edge of the fountain, a cloak draped around her shoulders. You stop. She doesn't turn, but says quietly, "I've written a letter to my family." You sit beside her. "I asked to stay." You don't answer right away. Instead, you dip your fingers into the fountain, swirl the water once, and watch the ripples fold into each other. "You'll miss things," you say. She nods. "I already do. But you'll find new things," you add. "Deeper ones." A pause. "I think I already have." You both sit in silence. Eventually, she says, "Do you ever wonder who you would have been outside?" You laugh softly. Someone late for something. Someone overwhelmed. Someone constantly cold and never knowing why. She smiles. Inside, you say, "I'm still those things. But I also belong." Historical curiosity: not all nuns were cloistered forever. Some left due to war, reassignment, or rare dispensations. But many stayed for life. And most records suggest they found purpose within the walls, sometimes more freedom and rules than they ever had beyond them. You walk her back to the guest cell where she's staying. The door creaks faintly as she opens it. Before stepping inside, she turns. "Do you think I'll be a good nun?" You consider this. "Only if you're a real one." She nods once, then closes the door. You return to your own cell. Light a single candle. Pull the embroidered cloth from under your pillow, the fox under the tree, with the word "Spera" stitched in firm, steady thread. You smile, then fold it again and place it back. You kneel beside your bed and whisper your last prayers. But your thoughts float elsewhere, to Sister Petronella's doodles, to the bee in the ink pot, to stolen crumbs of honey and crab apples, to laughter behind lye buckets and whispered Latin jokes in the herbarium. The cloister may be quiet, but it is not silent, and it is never still. You crawl into bed, but don't lie down yet, because something still feels unfinished. So you light your candle once more, pull out a scrap of parchment, and pick up your quill. You begin to write. Not scripture, not prayer, just words. For someone like you one day, someone new, or afraid, or just curious. You write, "Does serenity." If you're reading this, you've already found the door. That's the hardest part. And below that, a tiny fox, tail curled, eyes closed. The candle sputters low as you finish the last curve of the fox's tail. A dot of ink lands beside the drawing, unplanned, but somehow perfect. You blot the parchment gently, fold it into thirds, and tuck it beneath your pillow. You'll find the right place to hide it tomorrow. Somewhere subtle. Maybe behind the candle drawer. Maybe beneath the herb rack. Somewhere someone will stumble upon it years from now and feel just a little less alone. You lie back. The room is dark now, the glow of the candle long gone. Only the faintest silver light slips through the narrow window slit, just enough to outline the curve of the ceiling and the soft edge of your stool. Everything is quiet, but it's not empty quiet. It's settled quiet, the kind that wraps around you like wool, the kind that breathes with you. Outside, the cloister garden sleeps. The bees are silent. The apples hang untouched. Even the cloister cat, who patrols like an overly judgmental sentry, has vanished into his hiding place beneath the stairs. You shift under your blanket, the straw beneath you crinkling like old parchment. You're too tired to mind the scratchiness. Your body has been shaped by the day your shoulders bear the weight of laundry. Your legs remember the rhythm of sweeping, and your hands still smell faintly of lye, rosemary, and beeswax. You've been many things today: a laundress, a singer, a scribe, a nurse, a conspirator of quiet joy. And in all of it, you have remained yourself. The you that chants with her eyes closed. The you that sketches foxes in margins and tucks hope into linen folds. The you that, against all odds, feels more awake inside these walls than you ever did outside them. A thought drifts across your mind, something the abbess once said, when a novice asked if life here was about becoming holy. No, she said, it's about remembering you already are. You smile, not with your mouth, just your heart, and then slowly you let the day go. The candle smoke lingers faintly in your nose. The stone at your back cools your skin. The lull of silence deepens, wraps itself around you like a prayer that doesn't need to be spoken. And in that space between memory and dream, you slip quietly into sleep. Not because you are escaping the world, but because you are finally at rest within it. Now let it all fade. Let the chapel bells grow distant, their last echoes stretching like a ribbon into the night. The stone walls soften. The candle wax cools. The hush of the cloister wraps around you, a velvet stillness without edges, without weight. A peace not earned but simply allowed. You are not a task to be completed. You are a breath slowly drawn. You are a footstep softened by centuries. And you are safe here in this quiet, cloistered dream. Let your thoughts drift like petals on a stream. No need to hold on to any of them. The bees are at rest. The herbs are folded in their beds. Even the parchment waits silently, ink drying under moonlight. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right here, exactly where you are meant to be. Let your body grow heavy. Let your breath deepen. Let your mind follow the soft rhythm of the cloister. A chant remembered. A fox curled up. A girl with ink-stained fingers and dreams stitched into sleeves. The world outside can wait. Tonight you are in the company of candlelight, whispered prayers and stories written between the lines. Sleep now. And if you wake before morning, the bells will ring again and the story will begin anew. But for now, just rest. Peace in there, said Canaster. Peace.